Alright, now let's look at how we view IP address settings. Using the command prompt, we use the ipconfig command, as you see listed here, to be able to view or show the IPv4 and IPv6 IP addresses assigned to all of our network connections. As you notice in this figure, the 4 IP addresses that have been assigned to the physical connections. Windows has assigned the wireless connection 2 IP addresses, one using IPv4 and one using IPv6. And that is listed here. This one being the IPv6 and this one being the IPv4. And then the Ethernet LAN connection here has also been assigned an IPv4 address and an IPv6 address. Now remember, an IP address is not always easy, so we use character-based names to substitute for IP addresses. We have a few different possibilities. We have the host name, which is also called a computer name, which is the name of the computer can be used in place of its IP address. We also have what's known as a workgroup name, which identifies the workgroup that the computer is part of. And the workgroup name assigned to this group is only recognized within that local network. We have the domain name, which identifies the network. Examples of domain names are the names that appear before the period in like Microsoft.com or Google.com. The letters after the period are called the top-level domain and tell you something about that domain. Then we have a fully qualified domain name, or FQDN, fully qualified domain name. This identifies a computer and the network to which it belongs. An example of a fully qualified domain name would be like www.course.com. The host name is www, which is a web server. Course is the domain name, and com is the top level domain name for Course Technology Network. Now when you're on the internet, a fully qualified domain name must be associated with an IP address before the computer can be found. This process of associating a character-based name with an IP address is called name resolution. And the DNS, or domain name system, or domain name server protocol, is used by a DNS server to find an IP address for a computer when the fully qualified domain name is used or is known. Now your internet service provider is responsible for providing you access to one or more DNS servers as part of the service it provides you for internet access. So when a web hosting site first sets you up on your website, an IP address and domain name, it is responsible for entering the name resolution information into its primary domain name server. The server can present the information to other DNS servers on the web and is called the authoritative name server for your site. Now we'll talk a little bit about TCP/IP protocol layers. You might recall that a protocol is an agreed set of rules for communication between two parties. Operating systems and client-server applications on the internet all use protocols that are supported by TCP/IP. If we look at this diagram here, the left side shows these different layers of protocols and how they relate to one another. Now let's talk about TCP and UDP. TCP, or Transmission Control Protocol, or UDP, which is User Datagram Protocol, manages communications with the application protocols above them, as well as protocols shown underneath TCP/UDP. And as you can see, these are protocols that are used by the operating system. Now, as I said earlier, communication on your network happens by ways of packets delivered from one location on the network to another. And in the TCP/IP, the protocol that guarantees packet delivery is the TCP, the Transmission Control Protocol. This makes a connection, checks whether the data is received, and then resends it if it is not. And that's why we call TCP a connection-oriented protocol. And TCP is used by applications such as your web browser or your email. Now, guaranteeing that this delivery takes place is longer and is used when it is important to know that the data reached its destination. Now, on the flip side of that, we have UDP, or User Datagram Protocol. This does not guarantee delivery by first connecting and then checking whether the data was received. That's why we call this a connectionless protocol. We use UDP for like broadcasting, such as streaming video or sound over the web, where our guaranteed delivery isn't as critical as like an email. And we will use UDP to monitor our network traffic. Now, some of the other important TCP/IP protocols that are used by applications here are HTTP, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This is a protocol that's used for the World Wide Web and used by web browsers and the web servers to be able to communicate. The secure side of that is HTTPS, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. And this protocol is working with a security protocol such as Secure Socket Layer, SSL, or you might see TLS, which is our Transport Layer Security, and which is better than the Secure Socket Layer. Let's see, another one we have is the SMTP. You might have heard this before. This is used to send email messages. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. If you've ever set up email on your mobile devices, you might have seen POP and IMAP being used. The recipient of an email would use one of these protocols to deliver the message. POP3, which stands for Post Office Protocol version 3, and IMAP 4, which is Internet Message Access Protocol version 4. When you're using POP, email is downloaded to the client computer. When you're using IMAP, the client application manages the email stored out at the server. The Telnet Protocol is used by the Telnet client server application to allow a network administrator or device administrator or other user to control a computer remotely. Telnet is definitely not considered a secure transmission because transmissions in Telnet are not encrypted. A couple others that you might have heard of are LDAP, which stands for Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. This is used by clients when an application needs to query a database. Or FTP, which stands for File Transfer Protocol. This allows transferring of files between two computers. And you can use browsers such as your Windows Explorer, or you can use third-party software to transfer files using FTP like FileZilla. Another one of the TCP/IP protocols that are used by applications that you might be familiar with is RDP, or Remote Desktop Protocol. And this is used by the Windows Remote Desktop and Remote Assistance utilities to connect to and control a computer remotely. If you've never used this, it's a great feature to be able to use. We have the internal applications that are available from Microsoft as well as third-party to be able to remote desktop control of another device.